All right, it looks like we are live. Welcome everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to the first young adult bleeding disorder Google Hangout. This is pretty exciting for the bleeding disorder community, where we are live around the world. It should be broadcasting from our YouTube page and our web page as we speak. Really excited about this. We have two pretty incredible young adults on the call. In addition to myself, we have Patrick Lynch. Patrick, want to wave?
Hello.
And we have Lauren Nyberg.
Hello.
Just as a test, just to make sure that you all can see this, if you can submit a question or say hi, there should be a Q&A box over to your left-hand side. We just want to make sure that we're not talking to ourselves here. If you can just maybe type something, hi, your name and where you're from.
Who is going to be first? That's what I want to know.
Let's see.
So there's also a little bit of a lag between when we say things and you all receive them. So there may be some longer pauses sometimes between when a question is asked and when it is answered. Don't be thrown off by that.
Yeah. Let's see. I see that we have a couple of viewers on here. Great. Hello, Nathan Jones. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We're excited to have you. So I'm glad that this is working. As you know, technology can be a great thing, and technology can be an awful thing. But right now, we're really excited that this is working for the first time. It says that there's another viewer here. Would you like to introduce yourself just by typing in the Q&A over to the left-hand side of the screen? There should be a blue box, a green box with an arrow, a yellow tag box, and then a Q&A, and you can type your name in there and say hello. Great. Nathan is from Fort Worth, Texas. Glad to have you on, Nathan.
Lauren, are you in DC as well?
No, actually, I live in Chicago, so greetings from the Midwest, everyone.
Wow, so this is pretty good. With Nathan, we got Chicago, Texas, Washington, and California. That's pretty good. 4 people, 4 different parts of the country.
Yep.
Pretty neat. If you're just joining the live Google Hangout right now, if you can type your name and where you're from and say hello, that would be great. There's a Q&A over to the left-hand side in a blue box. It's the 4th one down. Just to introduce yourself so you know that you can hear us and that we can see you.
And you can also make fun of us when our video goes out and we get stuck on our face for a little while.
Seems only reasonable.
There's a couple more viewers out there, so don't be shy.
Nathan sets a high bar, you know? I mean, he was right off the bat, 3 comments. Like, it's intimidating. I can understand why people are a little more reserved to follow that strong lead.
Yeah. And Nathan, if you want to comment again, you're more than welcome to.
You win best commenter thus far, so.
Big shout out to Kimberly. Kimberly just joined us. Hello from Wisconsin.
Hey, Kimberly. By the way, I'm going to apologize in advance if my dog decides to talk to me during this. He seems like he's ramping up to give me quite a cacophony of words. So, just a heads up, right, buddy? Yeah, that's my impression of you. Let's see if I can show him off. You want camera time? Is that what it is? No? A little shy? Okay.
What's your dog's name, Patrick?
His name is Finn, Huckleberry Finn, for the adventures he had before he was rescued.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's amazing. It's funny, actually, because he has a shattered right hip. I have a pretty banged up left ankle and left knee, and my girlfriend has got some genetic knee and hip problems. So sometimes the three of us are walking, and we're all hemo walking, all together.
Okay, great. Maybe we can get started. I see in here on my screen. This is from Nathan. On my screen, it's a cube with smaller cubes inside. If you click that, it will show the question box for those who have different screens.
Oh, great. Yeah, I actually just got a message from somebody who is trying to figure out the Q&A box, so hopefully that was a helpful tip.
Great.
Thanks.
All right, guys, we can get started here. And if anyone joins us, feel free to introduce yourself by typing into the Q&A here. Oh, look at that, Lauren. We have someone else from Chicago joining us.
Yay!
That's awesome. As Patrick said, the USA is pretty well represented from the East, Middle, and West Coast here, which is awesome.
Yeah, pretty impressive spread.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, welcome everyone for joining us on our first live Google Hangout. We are utilizing some pretty cool technology right now. This is live, this is not pre-recorded. There is a Q&A box over to your left-hand side. If you have a comment or have questions, we encourage you to type them in there. We're going to have a really informal dialogue for the next hour. As if we're kind of just hanging out and talking about what we could do better for young adults in the bleeding disorder community. So with that said, I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Rich Pizzillo. I am originally from Rhode Island, and I live in Washington, D.C. now. I work for the Hemophilia Federation of America, and I have hemophilia myself. Formed an inhibitor at age 18, was able to tolerize the inhibitor after 9 years of ITT. And really happy to be in a state as I guess you can still consider me as a young adult, being 31.
Absolutely.
Younger adult aging out into the adult world. It's hemophilia has definitely helped to make me who I am today. I wouldn't say that it defines me, but I would definitely say that it's helped to sculpt me in many different ways. And young adults is an important part. We are, and those that are in their teenage years, the next generation of the bleeding disorder community. So hearing from you and finding out if these are the types of things that are really speaking to you that we can do on a more frequent basis, or if there's something else, I think that this is a good way that we can connect outside of national meetings and local meetings, and then we can be in the comfort of our own home. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick.
Yeah, I think, what's not to take anything away from the incredibly detailed programming that's offered at symposium, at annual meeting, at chapter events, but we all sort of anecdotally recognize the value in just being with one another when the opportunities present itself, the conversations that happen in hallways and at the bar and at the restaurant and at the fun closing night events. So when Rich said, hey, I want to find a way to utilize digital technology to get more of those kind of informal, maybe edgier conversations going online, I thought that was a really wise choice. And this could be a great platform that we could utilize to, because we're a dispersed community. I know we say it a lot. It gets kind of cliche, but it's true. And it's hard to keep in touch with people who are all over the place, but digital and social media gives us this opportunity. So I think this is a great idea. And for those of us in that 18 to 35 range, there are, just like any demo or subsection of our community, there are specific concerns and questions and considerations that go on in our age group that aren't as appropriate for people who are 50 plus or who are in their teens. So I think it's fantastic that we have this, and I'd be very curious to hear if you guys find it useful, if it's like something you'd like to see continue, or if you have suggestions as ways we might be able to tweak it to make it mean all the more to you. So thanks, Rich, for inviting me.
Absolutely. I think that this is, as you said, Patrick, something that it's pretty neat to think that we're in a time where we can do this without being in Chicago or being in LA or being elsewhere in the country. So it's pretty neat that this is live and to connect. Just that, nothing will compare to being in person, but this is pretty cool that we can do this. Lauren, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of a little bit about your background and yeah, anything else that you want to say?
Yeah, happy to do so. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. I'm Lauren, and I am a young adult, but I'm not directly impacted in the hemophilia community, but I have worked for HFA for the past 4 years. I've actually just celebrated my 4-year anniversary, woohoo. So I work in programming with HFA, so I manage the Blood Brotherhood program, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but that provides support to adult men in the community. And then our Helping Hands program as well, which provides financial assistance to families and individuals in the community that are needing some support. As I mentioned before, I live in Chicago, but got involved with HFA when I lived in DC. So, I really enjoy working in the community. I feel like even though I'm not personally affected, I've met so many friends and have sort of a family in this community now. So it's great to be a part of this. So kind of where we're going to go next is we wanted to talk about some of the programs and resources that are currently out there for young adults, and then a little bit later we're going to talk about kind of where are those gaps and what do you guys want to hear, or what do you want to see in the community for young adults. So I'm going to show my screen. We've pulled a little bit of a graphic together just to speak from, so bear with me there. All right, so I'm first going to kind of talk about some of the programs that we have that are through HFA. So like I mentioned, Blood Brotherhood is a national educational and support program for adult men with bleeding disorders age 18 and up. And you can kind of get involved with Blood Brotherhood in a couple of ways, locally as well as nationally. So locally, HFA is partnered with 16 of our member organizations, and we have been able to have face-to-face local groups for the men to meet and connect on a regular basis, usually about 4 to 6 times a year. But if you're not at a local, if you're not in an area that has a local Blood Brotherhood site, we also have an online forum where you can connect with men all across the country at any time and talk about issues that are important to you. The online forum also hosts live online chats, which take place the second Thursday of every other month. So the next one coming up will be Thursday, September 11th, and they're always at 8 o'clock Eastern. And just kind of gives you a chance to talk with other guys and connect on issues and topics that are important to you in a kind of a relaxed setting. And then HFA also has another program that young adults can access, which is the Blood Sisterhood program, which is a peer network of women with bleeding disorders. And you can get involved with Blood Sisterhood locally. A lot of our member organizations have local women's groups that you can get involved with. And there also is opportunities to get involved nationally. We have webinars about quarterly that have educational topics geared exclusively towards women, and then symposium, which is available to everyone in the community. We have different tracks for men and women and moms and dads. Symposium happens every year in the springtime and is very family-centered and patient-centered, and gives you a chance to connect with other folks, kind of like we were talking about earlier. So really that face-to-face interaction that we all really enjoy. symposium this year is going to be happening March 26th through 28th in St. Louis. So for any of these programs and how to kind of get more involved, you can go to our website, hemophiliafed.org, and also check up on us via social media and Facebook and Twitter. We're always posting and informing the community, so I encourage you guys to get involved in some of these programs that we have at HFA. Now, Rich, Patrick, do you kind of want to talk about some of the other ones on here? I know some of you guys have been involved with some of those other programs.
Sure, absolutely. So I think the next one is the National Youth Leadership Institute that the National Hemophilia Foundation runs. I was very honored to be a part of that program for about 6 years. I was co-chair of it for about 3 of those years. It's a program for 18 to 25-year-olds from around the country that are in the bleeding disorder community. You come together and do leadership training with local member organizations, chapters, and then do national training as well. So a really great program that I believe has been going on since 2000. It wasn't called, or actually the late 90s, it wasn't called NYLI, and that's a tongue twister right there, NYLI at the time.
Maybe it shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. But I believe that it's been around for a while and has some incredible young adults that are on it right now. What is the next one, Lauren?
Connect for Bleeding Disorders is also available through NHF. You can kind of click on that website to learn more about it. But I believe it's a way to kind of get involved with other young adults in the community and also give back to NHF and the community in general. So you can click on, or I think folks can click on this, but you can click on that link to kind of find out more.
Yeah, and I can talk a little bit about, in terms of Stop the Bleeding and Believe Digi, we've actually, Believe Digi is my company, which produces Stop the Bleeding and our other programming. Connect is an official partner of Stop the Bleeding, which means when there's opportunities, we co-host events, and at least in New York, which is where my experience with Connect is, just to echo what Lauren said, it is an opportunity to get together as young people and in a much more social setting, and that element of give back and how can you bring new people into the community, potentially new volunteers, new donors, spread the word in social settings. It's very, it's not an educational event, it's very informal, it's very comfortable, so I'm a fan of what Connect is doing.
Steps for Living is also available through NHF, and I noticed that they have sort of different educational areas for different age groups, and there's certainly one for the young adult community, so you can go on there and read you know, different educational pieces and resources available.
Great, and I could also speak to Affirm. Affirm, the Adult Fellowship for Integrating Responsible Mentors. I could say that one without a tongue twister, but I can't say the NYLI. So that's a pretty new program that came out. It's about 5 years now, and that's for ages 25 to, I believe it's 40 years old, and it takes younger adults to early adults, let's call them, and give them exposure to the entire bleeding disorder community, whether it's certain treatment centers, whether it's doing research projects at the CDC. It's a 3-year commitment, and I know that they're in their 2nd year now, and they have some international students that are involved with it. I believe that they meet at least twice a year somewhere around the country, and the whole emphasis is to have exposure within the bleeding disorder community to leaders, and then to do some type of active project as a result of it. Lauren, what else is on the list that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, so SURO, I think that's how it's pronounced, Step Up, Reach Out, is a 1-year international leadership development program for young men I believe aged 18 to 25 with hemophilia A and B. So another sort of leadership opportunity for young adults in the community. And then I think we have someone on the call that can talk about Stop the Bleeding.
Finn has chosen to not talk at all, so I'll do that. Finn is my dog for anyone who wasn't here at the beginning. But yeah, so Stop the Bleeding is a comedic web series that is designed to engage specifically our teens and young people in a way that they're not used to. So for those who don't know, I have severe hemophilia, as did my brother, who passed away partially, brought on by his complacent self-care. So Stop the Bleeding is an effort to expand the ways in which we think about outreach and advocacy, and using entertainment as a prominent vehicle to create connection, build community, and ultimately educate. I get to break some news on this call, which I just realized, and that is Believe Digi is the production company that my partner Ryan Gielen, is the director of Stop the Bleeding, and I co-run, and through that we do all of our programming within the bleeding disorders community. But as of last week, we also now have a nonprofit organization that is called Entertainment to Affect Change, which is explicitly dedicated to creating cause-based entertainment. So I'm hopeful that through this new umbrella organization, we'll be able to do more and more both within the hemophilia community, and I would like to expand well beyond that into other chronic and rare disease states. So I'm excited to be able to announce that here on the first ever HFA Google Hangout for young adults.
It's very exciting news, and congratulations there, Patrick.
Thanks.
Awesome, awesome.
So I guess we'll turn it over to you guys and ask, have any of you been involved in any of these programs, and what has your experience been?
Yeah, and I was mistaken before. Our Q&A is on the left-hand side. Your Q&A is going to be on the right-hand side. So sorry if I was a little dyslexic to you, but your Q&A is going to be on the right-hand side. It should be the fourth one down, and we definitely want this to be interactive there. So feel free to type, and we will answer them as they come out.
Rich, just to kick us off, when Nathan was mentioning earlier that he can sympathize with left side of the body bleeds, it got me thinking about how, as kids, bleeds can take away from the ability to keep good attendance at school, which can hurt grades, can impact your social life, your ability to expand through extracurricular activities. And we talk about that a fair amount with kids, but 18 to 35-year-olds, you are working to build your career, maybe build a family. So I'm curious to know from you, Rich, ways in which bleeds and having hemophilia what are some of the obstacles that you've faced as a professional, as a young, growing professional, and what are some things you've done to break through those obstacles?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Patrick. I think that as a young adult, having hemophilia, you go through a couple of different things. One, when you're in college, having bleeds, explaining what it is that the chronic condition is to your teachers, to your classmates. Missing school, I think, is a big, real scenario when it comes to having hemophilia. And then when you graduate college, it's finding a job. And I think that there's a lot of pressure right now for young adults in the bleeding disorder community that are looking for jobs. I think that there are pressures in terms of finding a job in your location, making sure that the insurance is good, just because the Affordable Care Act passed and and we have access to insurance. It's still knowing the plans, being educated as a young adult. I know when I was off my parents' insurance, the Affordable Care Act wasn't there, and I had to learn the plans. So there's a lot of pressure in terms of that as well, and then finding a job. And the reality is, hemophilia doesn't stop because you have a job that is 8 to 5 plus hours, a day, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I think how do you talk to your employer? How do you disclose in a relationship? I think all those things have definitely affected me in my life and the decisions that I've made, and I've learned kind of the do's and the don'ts when it comes to having a bleeding disorder. But I would think that there there is a lot of pressure on those that are in college and then graduating in terms of finding that job and finding a job that A, has good health insurance, and B, can provide you with what you need. Would you agree with that, Patrick?
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly, although I also in that hear something that I'm very sensitive to, which is, yes, you want to find a job that has good health insurance. Health insurance for, especially for our community, is a paramount concern. That being said, I think it can be dangerous to take a job that you don't really want for, say, the health insurance or the overall benefits, or even if it's at a pay grade that's maybe slightly above what you were expecting, so it just seems like, wow, this is a great opportunity. I know I have plenty of friends who they got their first job either out of undergrad or graduate and now have been there for 5, 10 years. They've had promotions, they've moved up, but they don't so much enjoy it. And I think we spend a lot of time doing what we do for a living, and it's important to find something that, yes, of course, is able to provide for your health, provide for your family, help you grow in those regards, but it is very important to not push to the wayside how you want to be spending your limited amount of time on this planet. And that's a tough balance that we have to juggle. So I'm curious to know, I feel as though, and not to speak for you, Rich, but I think in some ways, because of the kind of work we do, our angle on how hemophilia interacts with our professional life is a bit skewed from the norm. I'd be very curious to hear if there are people who are watching who are have different perspectives on what it means to disclose, and how do you find that job that provides, which also satisfies you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Patrick. And I do think that given our professions and working in the hemophilia organization, people can relate and understand a lot more when you say, I'm having a bleed and I can't walk. I can share that before joining HFA, I worked on Capitol Hill for about 5 years. And it was a personal choice that when I first got hired to share with the office manager about having hemophilia. And because of that, we were able to fill out all the necessary paperwork for FMLA, because let's face it, you're going to have bleeds and you're going to have scenarios and situations that are going to prevent you from going to work. And I do think that when you're in situations where employers are not aware of what a bleeding disorder is, you do run that education, and the advocacy hat has to be put on, because you need to educate, because there's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of ignorance that comes along with when you mention hemophilia or von Willebrand's or any other bleeding disorder that comes along with it. So it really is up to us as young adults to A, know how to educate, and B, it really comes with that personality too of how to educate as well. And I think that plays a long way into it as well.
Hey Nathan, I'd be curious to hear a bit more about, if you want to share about what that balance that you're trying to find. I'm assuming you're referring in your comment to that struggle between finding something that can provide and satisfies. Just so you guys know, unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to comment back to the questions. So we see everything, but if you don't hear us say something, it's not that we're ignoring you. We just don't have the ability to type anything. So I'd be curious to hear more if you're willing to share, Nathan. Rich, something that occurred to me. I've been having, since I moved to California, it was interesting to move here and set up residency here and get health insurance here during the ACA's full, full, whatever you call it, rollout, I suppose. And what I experienced with Kaiser, which I was pretty public about and was rather unfortunate, but recognizing within that there is a certain level of responsibility, I think at least, that I feel, I'll speak for myself, I feel a certain level of responsibility in those situations, not simply to do what's best for me or what's easiest or what's quickest, but what's right. And that's not always an easy thing to do. And I'm fortunate in that I don't have children. I don't have a big family I have to provide for and spend time with. I'm an independent young adult. I have very minimal concerns outside of my own pursuits. That being said, there are ways in which we can always choose to make the choice that's best for the community, and that goes to your point, Rich, about if there's an opportunity to educate, if there's an opportunity to advocate, keeping in mind, people, I'm sure you get this too, all the time will say, like, I don't know that much about hemophilia, I'm sorry. Because we're a small community. You don't need to know the ins and outs of hemophilia. Now you're talking to me, and I can educate you a little bit. We can move forward. Just the way I don't know about every rare disease there is, and I'm sure no one does, maybe except the people at Nord. But when we're given the opportunity, I do think it's our responsibility in the community to take it so that it not only makes our lives a little bit easier, but the rest of the community's lives a little bit easier.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Patrick. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Lauren, were you going to say something?
I was just going to ask the rest of the audience, kind of, as Patrick talked about advocacy, how the rest of us on this call, how do you engage in advocacy in your community or in your state? Just wondering if anyone out there would be willing to share with us.
And it's funny too, because as young adults, there's plenty of people in the community in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s and beyond who are staples of the community and have been able to contribute a lot. There's the younger group and the kids for whom so much is about making sure that they are cared for. But 18 to 35 kind of exists in this interesting limbo between adolescence and being young and school and first job and taking responsibilities as a full-throttled adult. So I'm sure there's a range of ways in which people 18 to 35 advocate. I guess a lot of it has to do with comfort.
Mm-hmm. So Nathan kind of shared with us about kind of some employment issues. Been mostly working in call center environment, showing up one day in wheelchair, next day walking, next day with ACE bandages on your elbows. Draws a lot of questions from supervisors and upper management, and even been disqualified from management positions due to attendance. So I think that we hear that a lot in the community. So what are your thoughts, Rich and Patrick, on that? And maybe how have you, maybe, and I know Rich, you kind of shared a little bit about talking with your manager beforehand. But what have you guys done in those situations?
Yeah, I know that I can speak on a personal level, not even with a job, but when I was in college, I had a couple of scenarios where professors and students would say to me, you're on crutches one day and you're off crutches the next and you're back on crutches 4 days later. Are you faking it? Are you trying to get out of this test? Are you trying, like what's your deal type of thing? And I think, going along with what you're saying, Nathan, I think it doesn't stop. The reality of having hemophilia is, A, we can rebleed. B, there are many complications that go along with it, and it's not just an elbow or a joint. Muscle bleeds are really difficult to have. So I think that, unfortunately, that, when you're in a wheelchair one day and walking the next, and then with the bandages, I think especially with jobs too, it's difficult, but I think that's where disclosing about having a bleeding disorder, it's a personal choice, but that's why we have HR departments, and that's why there's laws out there to protect individuals like us that have a chronic condition, to make sure that discrimination doesn't happen. And it's unfortunate because discrimination will always happen in terms of things like this, but I think that's why we have the support that we do in the community. Patrick, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, it strikes me, draws a lot of questions from supervisor and upper management. I guess my question, Nathan, is were you upfront with them in the beginning about your condition? And if you were, are there anything going forward in a new job? Are there things that you would like to be able to establish off the bat that maybe you didn't think to establish, or were they not very receptive? Because I worked at a call center for a period of time as well, and I remember telling them right away, like, so here's what I have. Sometimes it'll look like this, and sometimes it'll look like that. But I'm fine. I'll let you know if I ever need anything above and beyond. I know how to maintain myself, and I will give you proper notice. There may be times where I have a bleed so significant that I will have to call out last minute. This should not be by any stretch a regular occurrence. I think it happened once in the year and a half I was there. Obviously, if you're having bleeds that are keeping you from being at the workplace more often than once in a blue moon, that's a problem. That's a concern. And how do you remedy that? I do think with call center jobs, the one I worked for, if yours is like anything like mine, despite the advances in technology, they were still doing it the same way they did it in 1985. So being able to work remotely was not a possibility. But might it be for you? You're developing skill sets in whatever capacity you're working. Are those skill sets that much less valuable if you're working from home on days where the bleed is that significant? Could you work with the management and supervisors to come up with a strategy where you can utilize what makes you valuable at this job even when you can't be in the office? Rich is right. There's not an easy way. There will always be a certain amount of discrimination or bias, either explicitly or implicitly, but it's our job to utilize the resources that are made available to us as employees in the HR department to work with them and be proactive about solutions. That's something I've found, at least in my advocacy work, not just recognizing what the problems are, and I think we as a community do a really good job of this in Washington days and on state advocacy days, not just recognizing what the problems are, but offering positive solution-driven arguments that don't put the other person in the position of being an opponent, but as a teammate in solving problems.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Patrick. And Nathan, and we can chat offline with us and Patrick and help you along with this, but I think it really comes down to that if your superiors and your supervisors are feeling this way, then I think that the HR department is number one, and if nothing works there, I think it may be time to, last case scenario, to look for a different type of job, because there's a whole ways of other discrimination that goes along with that, and that's unfortunate, but I know, but especially in your employment, that should not be happening, because there are many, 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 many laws that protect you from these types of things. But unfortunately, as Patrick and Lauren were saying, we hear this way too often, and this is something not just with hemophilia, but it's other chronic conditions as well that are facing.
Yeah. And just as another resource, I know that we, Patrick and Rich both talked about kind of engaging with others, with the disorders that are kind of going through these situations. But PSI also has, Patient Services Inc. also has a legal hotline that with attorney staff that are speaking to bleeding disorder specific issues. So for any kind of legal help in that regard, or kind of what your rights are, that might be a good resource for you as well to kind of navigate through that.
Yeah, and if you're saying that you're the top agent in the center, then there's got to be an amicable way forward, and it may mean having to engage advisors or counsel outside the workplace. But ultimately, if they're not willing to work with you on a solution to, if you're a productive employee and a top agent, and the only thing against you is your health care and their inability to work with you on a solution, if it were me, that's the point at which I would start counseling paid advocates and lawyers, frankly, because that to me sounds like where there is something being violated. And unfortunately, it is common, but a lot of people throw their hands up in the air, and if you can take the initiative and are willing to bear the brunt of having to put the legwork in to cause change, it's an uphill battle, but I don't know, but based on what you're saying here, there's grounds. It's worth looking into. It's really worth looking into. And to be the top agent at a place too, there's got to be a certain amount of satisfaction with that. I remember when I was working at this call center, I didn't much care about. It was for a bunch of restaurants. I didn't much care about like how great the steak frites were or what the soup of the day was over here, but I took pride in being good at my job. And fortunately, I was never in this position. I got to imagine there's a certain amount of pride that gets, and rightfully so, that gets unfortunately mitigated or stinted. Yeah, 6 out of 400. I mean, that's like stupid good. So you should absolutely not be in a position where you're not allowed to advance. Out of 400 people, there's a way forward here, and we could, like Rich said, we could talk more about that at a different time. But there's got to be a way forward here.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. It's awesome, Nathan, that you just said that you're ranked 6 out of over 400. I think that shows right there that you're a quality hard worker. There's no question about that. But we can, if you want, please reach out to us, and we have some really talented, intelligent people on our staff that has a lot of experience with this type of stuff. And as Patrick said, if there is a legal, a legality in terms of discrimination here, we can, absolutely at least hear your story and see if we can do anything to help you as HFA. But I'm just looking at timing here. I would love, and I know we all would, to hear from the rest of you of what else could be done for the young adults in the bleeding disorder community. Do you like this format? Do you like that we could use this as a platform, as a Google Hangout, to showcase different scenarios? And I think this discussion that Nathan brought up is a really timely and valid discussion here that could probably go on for quite a while. But if we had some legal experts that are on this type of thing, is a Google Hangout something that you all would be interested in, or are there other ideas out there, not just limited to Google Hangout? And we would encourage you to go to that right-hand side of your screen and type into the Q&A any ideas that you have in terms of what else we could provide for you. Lauren presented a list of resources that are out there right now, and what we don't want to do is be redundant and do anything that is the same, because all the programs that Lauren listed are fantastic and are doing good jobs. But what else could we be doing to help serve the needs of those that have, that are young adults in the bleeding disorder community?
And just while we're waiting on someone to respond to that, I'll add, I think we talked about this a bit, Rich and Lauren, that going forward, if this is a format that enough people like and would want to be a part of on a monthly or semi-monthly basis, we can have conversations that are specifically and exclusively about workplace concerns, about disclosing in relationships and personal relationships, any myriad of topics, and we can bring in advisors and we can bring in people with specific expertise. So this is really a general to see how this format works and this template, but this kind of topic we could easily spend an hour on with an expert, and I think that would be tremendously valuable. It's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe asking that question, is this format, this type of presentation on a Google Hangout, do you like this? Is this something that you would participate in more frequently? I know that you can see us and we can't see you, but please don't be shy.
I'll have to get Finn to start singing again.
Yeah.
And this is new. We've never done this before, so we appreciate you kind of navigating it and figuring it out as we are. So Nathan just mentioned that he thinks this is great, and he would love to have one, or I would love to speak on inhibitors. So yeah, that's another great topic that's very timely and affecting our community in a big way. So certainly a Google Hangout on inhibitors we could definitely have, and have speakers, maybe patients in the community with inhibitors, medical professionals, etc. What we want to hear what you want.
Yeah, Nathan just brought up the severes versus mild and moderate, and I think, man, that is a hot topic. As someone that is a moderate himself that formed an inhibitor, and I look at my brother who is a moderate, who's a third-degree black belt, and how it's just different versus the severes in terms of the infusion, recognizing bleeds, etc. So I think that all these topics, and you just brought up another one about hepatitis C. I think are absolutely great.
Mm-hmm.
Rich and Lauren, in your capacities at HFA, what would you say are some of the top 3 or 4 issues that come up that directly affect the young adult population, maybe in a way that stands out a little bit more than the at-large bleeding disorders population?
I think some of the things that we've talked about in this call, I mean, I think especially employment and insurance issues, the young adults are kind of rolling off of their parents' insurance and kind of embarking into this world as adults on their own, and it can be a little scary at times, and kind of figuring out, what kind of job you're going to have, how are you going to access insurance, and then also I've heard a lot too about relationship issues too. When to disclose to your partner that you have a bleeding disorder, and even to your friends too. As well. So those are some of the things I've heard. How about you, Rich?
Yeah, I agree with you, Lauren. I think one of the other hot issues too is we talked about jobs, but how about working for home care versus not working for home care, and how many times it's kind of the elephant in the room more often than not. But I don't want to say that it's bad or it's good. I think that there are a lot of great scenarios of friends of mine that are working in home care. Then there are some that put patients like ourselves into compromised situations of conflict of interest. We hear that a lot too, that in terms of I have a college degree, I have a master's, and I can't find a job, so I'm going to take a job with home care. Again, not saying that it's bad and not saying that it's good, but we'd love to put that on the table for young adults to address. And to talk about some of these things that usually come up outside of conferences, but really are not addressed within the actual formality of a conference. And I agree, Lauren, about the relationship as well. I think financial planning. One thing that they don't really teach well in college is they encourage you to take all these extracurricular mandatory classes that I don't even remember what they were, but it would be great if there was some type of encouragement of financial planning, of how do you save when you have a job, and how do you incorporate healthcare, and how do you have that rainy day fund type of thing. And I think it's general information for everyone, but it's even more specific, because how many times a year are we that those have hemophilia are smacked with these crazy bills that you end up owing that you don't think you do, but you actually do.
Yeah. And thanks, Saji, for mentioning that you love this idea as well. So thanks for participating. We also got another comment about, it looks like about being in pain management. I have a wife and daughter and would love to know how I can help them learn more and help more when I'm in pain. All I say is I just want to help. It makes me feel bad when I cannot help. So what can they do just to be involved? So absolutely, I think that's another big issue is, communicating with your family members as well of how they can support you. And actually, just to kind of put in another plug for an HFA resource, we have a families webinar. Rich, do you know that date offhand? Is it August 8th?
I believe it's August.
Yeah. What was that?
I believe it's August 8th.
Yeah, and it's about, I think it's about kind of this very topic. It's from a parent's perspective, but helping your child kind of cope with pain, and it can be very hard when you don't feel like you know what you can do to help. So that's kind of from the opposite perspective, but you can check that out on our website to get involved in that webinar.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's probably different for everybody. Sorry, I can hear my own voice. And if there's something I detest, it's that. So let me remedy my little problem. Yeah, I'm just going to put my headphones on here. That'll do. That's a tough one. I had an elbow bleed that started on Friday. Just today is sort of on the other side of things. And even still, I don't mind. I don't think she'd mind me sharing. My girlfriend, we live together, and her inclination is to want to do. She wants to help. She wants to be actively trying to aid me. And my inclination is to just kind of be a little standoffish, and I like to just, I don't really want to talk about it. I just kind of want to get through it. I know it needs to be done. I've gotten better as I've gotten older about calling in the reinforcements when I need them or admitting defeat when it's evident. But I generally I don't want help, and she wants to help. And the cool thing is we are able to engage that conversation, and she's able to say, well, I don't like seeing you this way, and you're clearly not in a good mood, and you're clearly hurting, so there's got to be something to do. And she's right about that. So then we're able to kind of talk out ways in which she can feel it doesn't become something that distances us, because that's the danger, right? If for 5 days in a row I'm sort of like, leave me alone, I have a bleed, that's not good for our relationship. And I imagine it's the same with your kids. So if I could offer any advice, I'd say I find just having an open dialogue and being really open about my side of it. I can't make her be really open and honest with me, but if I'm really open and honest with her, it will only go to encourage her to offer the same, and then we're going to find a solution that neither of us could have achieved independent of the other.
Oh, Rich, I think we can't hear you.
Yeah, you're a little quiet.
No, you're still a little, yeah. Now we can. Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, great. No. What I was going to say is that I think what you said, Patrick, really hits the nail on the head in terms of caregivers as those that we're dating. Not understanding what it's like to have a chronic condition. I'll share something really quickly, and it came from my younger brother. He's 5 years younger than me. So I have a brother that is 29 that has hemophilia, and a brother that has 29 and 25. And the 25-year-old does not have hemophilia. And about 2 years ago, he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, I know what it's like to sprain an ankle. I know what it's like to have an injury, but I don't know what it's like to have a bleed. And I wish I knew what it's like to have a bleed, because every time that I see you or Anthony hurt, it kills me inside, because I know I will never understand what it's like to have hemophilia. And it was a profound statement that I'll never forget, because from his perspective, every time that he sees his two older brothers that are hurting or in pain, he wants to understand. And that goes the same for caregivers or those that we're dating and partners. So I definitely think that what you said, plays a major role, that in addition from them wanting to learn about us, it's us wanting to learn about them and not taking our problems out that when we're in pain on them. And I think sometimes, I know I'm guilty of it, and I think that that's a really good discussion as well.
Yeah, and yes, absolutely. It's funny, my mom used to say similar kind of things to me, and I've heard that. I think probably, all of us affected by it have from loved ones at some point. I've been extremely aware of world news of late, and kind of just trying to ingest as much of it as possible. And it's just a reminder that life is full of obstacles, life is full of hardships, it's full of pain, it's full of trouble. For some of us, hemophilia is a part of it. For others, it's other things. And for those of us with hemophilia, we're all full human beings with all kinds of other considerations and grievances. I've always found that a little, I appreciate the sentiment, but it's always struck me as a little bit funny, because I can never fully understand what would make your younger brother, the pains he'll feel in his life. I'm never going to exactly know what those are, and I think the point I'm trying to drive at is that's where, for me, creativity and imagination can do so much to connect people, because we can't know one another's day in, day out lives, but we can listen and, using our imagination, sympathize with them, at least to some degree. So I don't know if that was worth sharing at all, but it felt like it.
Yeah, no. I think you make a really good point. And I think for some others, whether it's a brother or a mother or a sibling or a significant other, I do agree that it's empathizing, and I couldn't agree with you more, Patrick. That laughter and creativity plays a major role into how we deal with life. You know, take a bleeding disorder outside of it. It's just how we deal with the stuff that we're dealt with every day. I mean, sometimes, and I know we all can relate to this, I feel like I'm in a constant baseball game where I'm just with the bat and you're just swinging and you're striking out and you're hitting a home run, then you strike out again. And, hemophilia plays a role in that, but most of the time it doesn't. I think it helps you to cope with it. I definitely have learned some coping mechanisms as a result of having a bleeding disorder throughout my life. But I think that there's a topic right there too. How do you cope? And I think creativity and laughter and art all plays a role into it. Meditation, sports. I think that they all play a role into it too. I just had there's someone G-chatting a Romeo at HFA Gmail account, and he can't participate because he is currently at work. But I asked him what his ideas were for young adults, and what he said is to talk more about social issues that affect our community that we oftentimes overlook. So he's not on this right now, but it's kind of right in line with what we were talking. So it's those social issues that address bleeding disorders specifically that we can address, and I think relationships, caregivers, employees, etc. Am I echoing again?
You're okay.
Okay.
But I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what we want to do here with this Hangout too. We know that you guys go to a lot of face-to-face meetings and get a lot of that kind of education, which is fantastic as well. But we want to talk about kind of those hot topics and those issues that others might not be talking about. So please send us your suggestions and how you would like these to, either this format or something else, how you would like us to support you all going forward. We kind of identified that there was a little bit of a gap. We kind of heard that, you might, growing up in the community, you might have been really involved in camp or things like that. But then maybe once you went to college, maybe there wasn't a lot for you to do kind of when you got back. And so what else is out there? How else can we support you? So really that's the purpose of this Hangout, and your feedback is critical in helping, this move forward. So we thank you for all the comments that we've had tonight.
Yeah, and just to echo I think fantastic in terms of questions that are being, and just so everyone knows, this is, it goes right up on our YouTube, posted via social media, so you can get them to comment on it, and then look at next. And if it's another Google Hangout, we would definitely like to.
So you went in and out a little bit, Rich, but just to recap, if you didn't hear, this will be going on to our YouTube channel, and so you can view it, share it, post and comment on there, and then we'll also kind of keep you up to date of when our next Google Hangout will be.
Would that be a satisfying way for people to send suggestions or comments or topic ideas, comments on that YouTube page? That might be a nice organized way to kind of have it all aggregate and open so we can all see it and either second it or go like, oh, I don't know, and get a conversation going between this and the next one, just in the comments below the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Patrick. And I can comment too on some of the things that we've talked about in this call as well, some of the other topics, and you all can contribute and comment back if you think that those are good ideas going forward.
And I'm unfamiliar with the Glide app, Nathan, but I am curious. I agree that if we could find a way to maybe more directly be able to kind of bounce back and forth, that would be neat. I'm not sure if it's available, but it's worth looking into the Glide app. I always like downloading a new app.
Yeah, I think just like I've been trying not to talk too much because I don't know if I'm echoing out loud here. So awesome, awesome. I got the 2 thumbs up there. But just to kind of reiterate what was being said, I think the comments on the YouTube page would be great, or the Facebook page. Encouraging. I know that there's a lot of conflicts, and this is the first one. But if you really liked it, those that have been participating, we had our numbers hit up to we had 11 viewers at one time on here, which is pretty fantastic for the first Google Hangout. I think we had just about that RSVP'd, so it's a good start, and it's gonna help to spread the word through word of mouth and by sharing with others that are in the bleeding disorder community. But this will be posted live right after this. We will put a post up, and I think that this is great, and I thank everyone, especially Patrick and Lauren, for participating for the last hour, and for those that have been active on this call and those that have been listening. I think it's a good step forward of a resource that we can have that's available for those young adults in the bleeding disorder community.
Agreed. Yeah, thanks for letting me be a part of it, and I'm very curious to hear what the comments are and the follow-up is from this, and look forward to the next one.
Yeah, thanks to you both. I echo those sentiments. It's been a great last hour. I'm really excited about the future Hangouts. Thank you.
Awesome. So it is about 9:04. We're going to end this Google Hangout. Again, if you haven't liked HFA's Facebook page, please do so. We're on Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter. And the same thing with Stop the Bleeding. They are also all over social media as well. So please like us, get us involved. Even if it's not on this link, feel free to contact us, private message, and feel free to share ideas with you. As we always say here, your voice be heard, and we truly mean that. It's not cliche. We truly mean that we want to hear from you in terms of the programs that we offer.
Cool. Well, thanks, Rich. Thank you, guys, and hello and goodbye to Lacey as well.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Good night. Good night.